And we're on, and happy Monday to everybody, and we are excited once again to be here on Monday in your lounge room or your kitchen or wherever you might be. And I'm very, very, very lucky as an organisation and as people to be connected with so many amazing people and the guests that we've had over this last little period of time around Monday Night Lives, and talks about contrast in guests from one week to the other. Where last week we had Australian champion boxer Kane Sugar Watts, and this week we are very lucky to be the newly appointed head of middle school from Overnewton College, Jodi Fitzgerald-Tate. Hello, Jodi.
Hi, Lance. Thanks for having me.
Going all right? How's your world treating you? Being as a mother, first of all, a wife, and kids, and it's all at school. What's this world coming to? What have you got for me?
Well, look, chaos is probably the first adjective that would come to mind. If I was to talk you through my day today, it was setting the alarm and jumping out of bed, getting ready for work. Being a teacher doesn't necessarily mean that every aspect of my role at the moment is learning from home. We also have a permitted workers program running off campus at the moment, and so today I was physically at work, supervising those children who actually can't be at home because their parents are still permitted workers during this pandemic. So that was sort of the start to my day. A range of online lessons dealing with student issues, both remotely and the ones that were happening on campus. And I actually had teaching as well this afternoon. And interestingly, I was listening to you talk about the boxer that you had on last week. I certainly can suggest that in my home it was nearly like a little bit of a boxing match, and husband and dog out of the space so that we could have a chat this evening without some interruption. So, quite chaotic at the moment.
Well, thank you, and thank you to your household for allowing this to happen. And the COVID, obviously, this is the big thing we're talking about, the people having to send their kids to school because of the permitted workers and essential workers going through this current time. And it's a quite a challenging time for a lot of households, and with the kids, not sure whether they're coming, they're going, they're on all day, they're on half days, the remote learning. How have you found, how have the kids tackled this? How do you find your students have tackled this? Because you are the head of middle school, which is year 5 to 8. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Overnewton. So it's a big gap. That's a big range of kids. Year 5 kids will be dealing with it a whole lot differently because they need a lot more attention, whereas year 8 kids might be a bit more adaptable to being able to do that by themselves.
Yeah, that's right. Look, for our middle school students who are requiring that supervision during the day, they're coming in and they're still doing the same program that our children that are learning from home are doing. So they're still engaging with their lessons period by period, lesson by lesson, with their teachers coming in via video conferencing. So that's in terms of trying to keep something somewhat regular, that is something that we've been able to hold on to even throughout when we had our stage 2 restrictions. Then they went to stage 3. Now they're at stage 4. We've needed to pivot that program every step of the way to try and normalise what is a very abnormal time in education for our students. I think for us, the routine is really key for our kids. And that doesn't matter whether they're our prep students or even our year 12 students, who are obviously really being rocked by a very different year in terms of their final year of schooling. Routine is just critical at this stage in terms of keeping some of those behaviours normal. Everything down to encouraging our students to still get out of bed at the same time that they usually would, get dressed, have their breakfast, all of those regular things that our kids are used to, trying to, as I said, keep things as normal as possible, because at the moment this is our new normal. And what we've really been focusing on, certainly our leadership team and our teachers and all of our support staff, is ensuring that our students can continue to be as our focus needs to be on their well-being and their welfare. And whilst learning is always important, it's actually about their mental health. and ensuring that when we come out the other side, which we will, that we have reasonably well-adjusted young people that come back to us, and that's where we can really focus on the curriculum once again. And I'm not suggesting that the curriculum's been ignored. We're still certainly teaching to the best of our ability and providing those learning opportunities for our students. But first and foremost is taking care of our students during this really difficult time.
Yeah. And that's applause to you and to the Overnewton for doing that, because mental health and well-being, not just as a student but as an adult and wherever we are, is the most important thing. And we're finding this in business, in our corporate world that we're dealing with, is the investment and the mindset shift of actually going, okay, well, our people are our product. In your case, your students are your product. And they're not performing to their best of their ability in terms of their mental health and well-being. The rest doesn't mean anything. They can't actually produce what they need to, in their curriculum, and not being able to attach into it. And even the most robust of kids, we know, and from my experience in dealing with some of these kids, is even the most robust of kids are finding it really challenging. As much as we try.
Sorry, no, continue.
No, as much as you try it, we say, pulling your routine and your commitment, it takes a special type of ability to learn by yourself in that remote thing, even though you are into the Zoom classrooms or Teams or wherever you're on, pushing yourself through. But that we know as kids, they need that engagement. They need that engagement here. Yeah, when you talk about investments in mental health, that kids need that attention. And no matter what age the kid is, even as adults, we need attention. We need to be connected, and feeling that, and the lack of connection that they're getting is the biggest thing that's impacting their mental health. I don't believe, and you might know differently, but not the pressures and expectations that are going on with workload. It's just the fact that they're not connecting, or not being able to connect into their usual sort of banter conversations at recess and lunchtime and before school and after school, those sorts of things. Misinterpreting texts, because that's a devil. Social media is playing a big part on these kids. Right from the kids in primary school right through to high school. It's a really interesting time for them. What about those ones that are, that need that special attention, that need that little bit extra, that need that little bit extra love? What are we doing for them? What have we got for them?
We've got a really strong wellbeing program at our school, even pre-COVID. So for us, just further tapping into the really wonderful resources that we've got and the strategies that we would regularly employ day to day, we've been really fortunate that we can continue those. So we're ensuring that additional check-ins are taking place, whether that's from our student services team. We have a large range of counsellors on board who are providing video conferencing sessions, and for some students, they've needed to actually come in and be on site and have those sessions face-to-face. Of course, with our more vulnerable students, we work with external agencies to ensure that their care and their management at this time is really in the forefront of everybody's thinking. And for some of our students, it even means that we do need to make some adjustments to their workload, because they may be students who get quite anxious or experience stress if they're, if they feel or they're perceiving that they're falling behind. So as I mentioned earlier, really one of those key foci for us is to ensure that the mental health and wellbeing of our students comes first, and during this pandemic, the learning needs to come second.
And you say that, then there's those kids in the high school in doing VCE. There's obviously ATAR, the ATAR rank, their ranking gets ranked in terms of performance against the whole school. It's not a score that gets, okay, you've done A+, you're getting 99.9. That's not how it works. But where's their level of expectation, obviously, then leaving school, going into university? There's been much conversations between university and school about how that transition is going to work, or how the expectations are going to work that way?
From my understanding, being the head of middle school, I suppose my area of expertise certainly sits in the year 5 to 8 age bracket. But as a member of our college leadership team, we do keep ourselves abreast all different matters pertaining to our students. And obviously for us, we're a prep to 12 school. And whilst I'm not completely au fait with the ever-changing discussions that our education minister is having, with schools, and then it goes on. Look, they've made some adjustments. I certainly know to this point they have postponed the GAT, and that's certainly a tool that is used in measuring a student's ATAR. They've moved that, and now they've moved it again. They've adjusted the examination period and pushed that back. And they're still aiming at this point, but again, tomorrow's a new day and we just don't know what's around the corner. They're still aiming for our students to participate in their exams and have those finished early December with the goal of having ATARs provided by around New Year's Eve at this stage. But again, Lance, it's changing.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
But that's the world. You said we're going to adapt, and people are going to adapt to the fact that this is what it is. We are not in a new normal world. It's not an understanding of anything that's going on. And Victoria versus the rest of the country, and everyone's shutting down, everyone's freaking out. And obviously, the one of the biggest ones, I've got two young ones. Alexander's nearly 5, and my wife is doing an amazing job doing mummy kinder, which for that is all good, but having to deal with the troublesome 2-year-old who just wants to play and wants to do the whole time, trying to combat that. What extra resources or what support has there been for parents doing that homeschooling? Because there's an expectation that they're not to be the teacher, but they're there to have the kid be the commitment, in terms of what they're doing, but also trying to work themselves.
Well, look, for me to sit there and suggest that every school in the country and around the world that has had a period of learning from home, to suggest that they haven't had bumps in the road would be absolutely negligent of me. We have bumps every day, and we're certainly at school, we're certainly doing the very best we can to provide support for our families. And I think what's really worthy of note, and I don't shy away from saying this, is that learning from home is not the same as homeschooling. And so many people that I've heard quite a number of people, or I've done some reading that would indicate that, but we're just, homeschooling. I think it's fair to say that those children that are homeschooled have actually got adults who have signed up to be that support person for their children in that particular aspect of their educational journey. Whereas learning from home, which is absolutely what we're doing at the moment, was really thrust upon our parents. And certainly at my school, parents engage in paid employment, they've got careers, and these, for the most part, haven't stopped. So jobs have kept going for many people, albeit they're now working from home. And now they're also juggling that support of supporting their children while they learn from home. And that support can really vary. It can vary from a really motivated, diligent student, usually, who is now really feeling the impact of losing their social connectedness from their outside of school activities or just socialising in the playground. And now parents are trying to engage those students, and it could be as simple as just trying to drag them out of bed in the morning. And these parents are still trying to maintain their own employment on top of household duties. And I think about my household. We're all at home so much more, so it just seems like the house is a pigsty all of the time. So even those household duties, have really increased. And whilst there's certain things you need to let go, for the most part, our parents are doing a tremendous job in supporting their children in doing something they certainly didn't sign up for. They didn't sign up to be a distance educator. Their parents, first and foremost, and they send their children to us for us to be the teacher. And at the moment, we have sought feedback from our families at various points since we first went into a trial period, the last week of term 1, which seems like such a long time ago. For some of our students, they have had 14 physical days on campus since the 23rd of March. And that is a tremendous amount of time away from the physical campus, and we've had to do everything we possibly can and continue to learn about how we can communicate with our families in a really effective, efficient, succinct manner to be able to give them not too much information, because then they become overwhelmed, but then making sure we're not giving enough that they don't feel empowered to be able to support their children in what is a really tricky situation. So finding the balance is not always easy, and for some families we get it right, and for other families we need to do a little bit more.
Yeah, and the balance is crucial in terms of, is it not too much, not too little, and making them feel confident and safe in their environment and making it work, and then that sort of family dynamic. And you're a mother, you're a mother, you're a worker. How's your household coped? Because how your kids are.
I started this discussion with chaotic. I probably would liken that word. I would use that word again, and I'm sure it would describe most of our days. My husband is self-employed, and he has had very sporadic periods of working and not working during since the 22nd of March. So it hasn't been an easy road in terms of the changes there and the pressures that places on a family unit. However, on the flip side of that, it's been a somewhat of a blessing in disguise that whilst I'm engaged in my role, and it's certainly in this during this time, it's all consuming, and it's really, really hard to determine whether you're working from home or working at home or just always working. And it's, it can be quite chaotic for me, but the real benefit for our children at this stage is that they've actually got their dad who is able to provide them that support that is required. But don't get me wrong, Lance, I've done one day. I did one day with our 6-year-old. Our 6-year-old's in year 1, and I'm telling you that 4 hours, roughly 4 hours of actual work time, and that's not waiting for recess and lunch and things like that. That was a hard slog, and I'm a teacher. I teach young people. I've been teaching for over 20 years, and I can tell you that trying to engage your own children where you have an emotional investment that's a little bit different to those that you teach on a day-to-day basis, I really take my hat off to all the parents that are needing to provide that additional support, because it was really challenging. And as I said, that's one day, and my daughter's been, she's probably had 5 weeks of school so far physically at school over 2 terms. But my husband has pretty much engaged with the rest. And we've had a little bit of support when we were able to from my mum. And again, it's a hard slog. The way that parents, or the way that even our generation learnt at school when they were learners, is not necessarily the same way. Methods have changed so significantly from the basics of primary aged reading and mathematics. It's so very, very different to the way in which we would have learnt going to school.
Yeah, sorry, I was just putting some comments up here through that. And it is, when you talk about the adaptability of parents from, you said, from their learning experience from where it was, but even their learning experience from, as I said, from the end of last year, in terms of teachers, parents, and that relationship and how they're going about it. And I think it's, I say hats off to the teachers, to the parents, to all the caregivers that are actually doing this. I think, and I've spoken to a few teachers, and they've actually really enjoyed this period. They've actually enjoyed this remote learning, this sort of learning from home period, because it's actually challenged their ways of teaching. A lot of them have said to me, it's challenged their ways of teaching and how they're actually engaging with the program and the curriculum. And you said, looking at the individualization of the teaching, because you can get in that classroom aspect and it's just like, I'm teaching this and this is how we go and this is what we're going to do. But whereas obviously now it's had to be sort of be more individualized in how that, and I think that the teachers that I've made contact with have really enjoyed this experience. Probably give me a different story in 2 months' time. I'll get different responses, but they've enjoyed that experience. Obviously, when we first went into lockdown, because it was just, what's going on here? where are we going, what's going on, how are we supposed to do this, what software we're using, how are we getting the kids engaged, how are they going to get them out of bed, how do they know they're doing their work. All that was happening, but obviously 2.0 lockdown, it's been a lot better because of obviously the learnings that we've taken from it. Do you have much interaction with other schools about what they're doing and how they're going about things? How does that work?
Through, I suppose, personal and professional contacts that I have, and in speaking with my own colleagues and at school, we all sort of know people that are in other schools, or we've got friends that are in other schools, and you certainly share your resources where possible, and that includes your stories. So, things that might have worked well, and there are plenty of professional networks out there that, depending on the subject area that you might specialise in, you might be part of that group. And I certainly know, as a health and phys ed teacher, ACHFA's been providing quite a range of different resources, because try teaching PE through Zoom. It's really not quite the same. And at the moment, I'm teaching Year 5. So it's really, really interesting. And, the unit that I taught last term for about half the term was Aussie rules. Now, Aussie rules with kids at home who might live in a townhouse that don't have much of a play space, some may not even have a footy. So it's about, I think, regardless of the subject area that you teach, this time for teachers, whether that be learning from home 1.0 or 2.0, the real key to sanity, I really think, is talking to each other, making that time to be able to debrief if you've had a really rough day. Some lessons don't go as planned, and it's so much harder to manage that through an online platform than it is when you're in a classroom. So there's a whole new, there are whole new levels and dimensions that we're having to sort of manage and adapt to. And I think the teachers that, my advice certainly to the teachers at this point would be, you just need to remain agile and adaptable, because that is key. Every time there is a new change that's imposed from the government down, it means that we need to flick a switch and move into another phase. So, really having a fixed mindset at the moment and being extraordinarily rigid is just so detrimental to the mental health of everybody, in particular our parents and our teachers.
Yeah. And then there's one way to explore the resilience abilities of our kids is obviously to put them through something like this. You sort of talk about the mental health and well-being of the students and their ability to adapt and their ability to be agile and ability to make sure that they're keeping on top of things. The well-being program at Overnewton, and I've actually presented at Overnewton. I think it was a couple of years ago to the Year 9s out of the Taylors Lakes campus, and had a whole day out there with all the students out there. It was an amazing experience to see what it was all about. How come it's such a great focus, a big focus, because we believe it should be. How come you guys are the guys and girls are the trendsetters, pretty much, I reckon, because there's a real focus on the program, and you are pretty known for that wellbeing program with your students there. When did that all come about?
I actually think it really comes down to the fact that as a school, whilst we strive for high academic outcomes, we certainly never forget that the child's at the centre of everything we do. And whether that's a child that's entering our college as a 5-year-old and spending 13 years of their schooling journey with us, we're teaching people, we're teaching humans, we're not just teaching to a test. And we've got really strong college values, and we need to, I suppose, what we do believe we're really good at is celebrating the achievements of all students, whether they're in the classroom or beyond the classroom. And those opportunities that we provide students are opportunities for them to grow and shine, no matter who they are and what skills and talents they bring. Now, what we do know is that no matter how bright the child is, if you can't get them to school they're never going to perform. No matter what the learning profile is of those children, if you don't have happy learners that are feeling cared for and supported and nurtured, they won't learn. So we know, and good schools do know, that you need to put the child first in all of the decisions you make.
Yeah. How can we keep getting it so wrong, though? Where are we missing that step and going, okay, well, our students, as I said, our students are our product. They are humans, and when they leave the school, we need them to be in a better place than when they arrived. Is that not the simple way of thinking about it?
Well, look, Lance, I agree with you, and I think that at Overnewton we agree with that as well. Cool. It's about the end product and everything in between. But we're teaching humans, and it's really important that we don't forget that. The students are the centre of every decision that we make at Overnewton, and it doesn't mean we don't have bumps along the road. We certainly do, but it's about working in partnership, and it's just critical that the school and the family work together to support that child to be the best version that they can be. And that includes a really rigorous and relevant pastoral care program. And that's something that is continually evolving, and certainly during this pandemic. In our middle school leadership team, we've got 2 deputy heads of middle school who are outstanding in terms of their knowledge of young people and of what they need. And they have been so adaptive when it comes to developing the pastoral care program that our home group teachers are delivering to our students in a very formal capacity. Weekly during online sessions, and we have thrown away the standard curriculum map in that space when it comes to looking at the needs of our students right now, because the needs of our students in 2019 are not the needs of our students in 2020, and certainly not during a pandemic. And we have had to, really think on our feet and look at what do our students need right now. And we've just been planning week by week by week. And our deputy heads have been doing a tremendous job in being able to provide that support to our home group teachers. The other thing that we do also that's, we really stress that pastoral care is not just delivered by a home group teacher. Pastoral care is delivered by every single staff member in the college to every single student that they come in contact with. And that's an incredible that's an incredibly powerful message that you can share and really own, because we don't like to box pastoral care up and say, okay, we just deliver it at this time on these days in these weeks of the year. Pastoral care is from the moment those children step in to our school to the moment they leave. What's happening on the buses to and from school. Their use of social media, that joins us as well. We're dealing with so many new aspects of childhood and adolescence at the moment that we must be agile.
Yeah, you're dealing with social media, and I was going to bring this up later, but the angel or the devil, however you want to look at it, and they are. I got shown this in terms of their ability for technology. Kids these days is through the roof. I got outshone by I think this young girl was 7 years of age. I was actually presenting to a group of young girls 6 to 8 years of age last week through the Kids in Philanthropy program, and I was sharing my screen, and this is it gets me still. I was sharing my screen, and she had a capacity to start drawing on my screen in the presentation and start scribbling out all certain things and putting smiley faces and all that sort of stuff. And I just turned 40, and I had absolutely no idea how she was doing this and how she was making this happen. But it just shows to me the fact that these kids they're 2 steps ahead. They're 2-3 steps ahead of us. How are parents having that conversation around social media boundaries, we want to call them, or social media usage, without using the right language. We know once it's put out there that it's out there for life. That sort of thing. You can't retract what's been said. What information, what resource, what support do you with parents around social media or any sort of social connectedness component there?
Yeah, we've worked quite closely with a couple of external providers in recent years, because what we know is the children and adolescents of today, they're digital natives, so they've grown up with devices from, you know, some of them probably from before they could walk. So it's not a way of communicating, it's the way of communicating with regards to social media and the children and adolescents that we're working with at the moment. And that's clearly not going to change. And I think a couple of the agencies, certainly Common Sense Media is an organisation that we work with quite closely, and they provide so many fabulous resources for families and schools in terms of support and what you can do to work with your children. And our leadership team's actually spent quite a bit of time, you know, probably in the last 10 years, really looking at the use of social media in schools. And, you know, for quite a while, particularly with bring your own devices, when those sorts of technologies were brought into schools, schools were not really equipped with how to best deal with the use of YouTube and so really a lot of schools just locked everything down. And the principal of our school feels really strongly and has often shared his view with us that you're not teaching students how to be responsible when using social media and digital technologies if you're blocking everything and just putting you know, sort of restrictions galore. So it's about finding that balance of age-appropriate content and apps and games, etc., right through to, I mean, you know, look, some families will contact us and say, we don't know what to do. We can't, you know, get our child off their device, you know, and we message or my child's receiving messages at 2 and 3 a.m. And we have to, you know, it's small strategies, but and it's not common sense, and we should never be dismissive and suggest that, oh, well, you should just take the device. It's not that simple. And every family has their own story. Every family has their own certain situation. So it's actually just about keeping dialogue open, and it's about doing what works in your own family. There isn't a one-size-fits-all model that we can just dish out like a recipe and tell everybody, well, this is what you do and this is how you can manage it. Certainly, we've been talking about it at school at the moment, you know, just in terms of adolescents at the moment. You know, they can often get a bit of a bad rap and you know, and they can sometimes act out because, you know, they might indicate that they're bored or they're anxious. And, you know, the advice that we give is that you really need to make sure that you talk to your children about what's going on. And the reality is most of them would be on social media, and between them and their banter at the moment, I mean, they could certainly believe that we're facing an apocalypse. Like, who knows what's going on? That can be blown out of proportion. And, you know, we as parents and as educators, we do need to, and caregivers, you know, we need to try and keep them entertained at this point. This is a tough slog, and stage 4 restrictions, they're not easy and they're not fun for anybody. And you need to try and turn that confinement into positivity. Have a bit of a plan. You know, things as small as, you know, decluttering, organising clothes or games for charity, recycling, those sorts of things. But something interesting about social media is what the adults could be doing is actually asking, Lance, you mentioned a student, a young person who took control of your screen after you had shared it. What our parents can be doing at the moment is, and even our teachers for that matter and our caregivers, these young people, they can teach us a thing or two about social media. I certainly don't, you know, I don't make any apologies for the fact that when we've had social media issues at school, I remember last year calling students in and asking them, you know, did they have their phone? And they'd look at me thinking, oh, I know I shouldn't have my phone, but she's just come to my classroom. And they'll say, oh, it's in my pocket, or we go and get it from the locker. And, you know, and I get them to show me, you know, show me how to use Snapchat. What's this house party? You know, no sooner are people my age, and I'm only a couple of years older than you, Lance, no sooner are people our age learning how to use an app, 10 more apps have just been invented. They are so far ahead of the game. It's really all about the dialogue. And it's not always easy. Parents don't always have those relationships with their children, and I'm not suggesting that they do, but it's about really teaching our kids to find their safe place and find their safe person. And it may not always be a parent. It could be a cousin, an auntie, a friend of the family, or it could be a teacher.
Yeah, and great advice. Being engaged with them on their level, and I think that's that thing about teaching kids and teaching as adults is the ownership and the accountability of your actions and how you're actually working it. And I had we did a session, an empowering caregivers session at a school last year, and I still remember this dad, and he goes, my kid loves his games, and he's on it all the time, and that's fine. He still gets his work done, he still gets his exercise done, he plays his activities, all sorts of things, but he loves his games. And I said he had a sense of frustration that was keep building up. He goes, why won't he just go for games and come in and hang with us? And I said, well, actually, let's change the thinking. Why don't you get back in his level and go ask him how to play the game. Go ask him to sit on the beanbag next to him and ask him how to play it, and then sit down with him for half an hour and play the game with him. I said, watch your relationship with him grow. And it did. And he contacted me a little while later and said, he goes, I've done that, taught me how to play the game. I'm not really good at it. And he gets really frustrated with me, but he just appreciates the fact that I'm sitting with him for half an hour on his level. And that's amazing, and as you said, through social media use or whatever you're doing. And I think we talk about with kids, they need to be engaged, and they're engaging on their level, but giving them some ownership. You talk about your students is you take some ownership as well. Not everything's going to be given to you, but you've got to appreciate the opportunities that we've got in life, and the opportunities that have been taken away from us. So we're a bit more respectful of what can happen, moving forward. But taking ownership is crucial, because as you said, we can play this victim game and we're not going to go anywhere. And it's not going to happen. It's not going to be positive for anybody. It's not going to be positive for the individual or anyone surrounding. But if we take ownership over the fact of, okay, this is what's going on in our world, what are we going to do with it, and how are we going to move forward, and how are we going to do this together? And I think it's really crucial. And we have lots of conversations. There's an immense amount of pressure on parents these days, right at the very moment. And we talked about before, working from home, trying to actually make sure that you're task driven and getting stuff done at work, for work, because the idea that if you're not up to being able to do that and keep the kids committed at home, you might be out of a job. Then we're around, so it's mentioned about, I think in terms about when we try to, I presented this today at Lifestyle in Victoria, was lower your pressure and that expectation of doing a million things. And you spoke about it before, even through just household duties. Lower your expectation of getting 1 million things done. We've got to shift the goalposts and make that work for us. As a mother, teacher, head of school, doing all these amazing things in this world, how do you have those conversations when you can see something's going on with one of your students or with one of your kids at home? How do you do that? How do you tackle this? I want to hear from the magician's mouth herself.
Oh, I'm certainly no expert, and I don't to be that.
It is an expert. I said you're a magician.
Yeah, sometimes I think I am. Yeah, that's probably a good. Even I hold myself sometimes, Lance. Look, I think it's all about the relationships, and whether that's the relationships I have with the students at my school, or whether it's the relationships with my own children, relationships with family members, my friends, even my colleagues. It's about demonstrating a level of vulnerability for yourself, and that's a real challenge in society. It is a real challenge for people to own up and say, "Yeah, I'm doing it tough too." And it's not about saying that every time somebody indicates to me that they've got a problem that I say, "Oh yeah, me too," because that's not what it's about. But it's actually about being really transparent, and I suppose those that know me, they know that I call a spade, and I even do that with my students. Cool. And you need to be real. You have to be real, because trust and relationships are just critical in terms of people talking to you, reaching out to you, and knowing that there's no judgment. And, by no means do I have all the answers all of the time, but it's about working with people around me. And I have to admit, I love a chat. So usually when my office, it's quick, and I'm tired because everything takes double the amount of time because I can talk until the cows come home. But I think that's really critical, that you talk, you build the relationships, the trust. Once the trust is there, it is so much easier to infiltrate often to what the real core of the problem is. And then it's about utilising the resources around you and not trying to do it all on your own, because that's impossible, absolutely impossible. It's about tapping in to those who are experts in those fields. And our student services team at school, in particular, it's led by a psychologist, and he's amazing. And he works really closely with our staff and with our students, and he heads up a really fabulous team of support for our kids.
Yeah. Which leads us into, you said you don't have all the answers all the time, and you're not expected to. You said, even the professionals don't have all the answers all the time. It's just trying to find the learnings that we take from those experiences. I think, and we have this program which you're contributing to, the Empowering Caregivers program, which we were going to, and it's about understanding the tools and the questions and what we're looking out for and how we can look out for it, what we can listen out for. But you said it's about building the rapport. And how do we build the rapport into those conversations, in those relationships? Because it's not just I've noticed this, and I'm going to go have this conversation, and then we're all fixed and happy days. We're going to go off and skip into the sunset. But it's building the rapport into that. But it's having the tools and the knowledge, and with that knowledge comes the confidence to have those conversations, to build rapport into it. Because if you go into it going, notice that you're a bit off. And then the kid goes, no, I'm all right. See you later. And I think this is Empowering Caregivers, which we're releasing this into next month. But you can access it now. You can book your spot. It's virtual classroom. There's some pre-readings and videos, watching. If you want to see Jodi and myself go at it again, you will see us on the video there. With a couple of other experts and magicians doing their things as a part of it. So get involved. There's a link will be coming in the comments soon. But it's really important time for us to, as humans, to really connect into our own self-care. You, Jodi, how are you taking care of yourself? As a mother, as a wife, as a teacher, as a head of middle school? How are you doing?
Look, I'm doing okay. I certainly wouldn't say it's all rosy. I love to get out and about, so I'm not much of a homebody. Even during winter, I still like to be out and about doing things. And I'm somebody who's relaxed when I'm busy. That might sound crazy. I get it, but for me, that's just how that's me. So for me, I suppose taking some time to retreat, I try to take some time to relax, to be generous to myself. And I really need to be forgiving. And that's what I've had to learn probably quite a bit this year, more so than ever before, is really be forgiving of myself. And you mentioned earlier, lowering those expectations. My flaws aren't as spotless as they always would be. I might have a pile of laundry, those sorts of things. And I've just had to, as much as I don't love it, I've had to learn how to just find peace with it, because there are only so many hours in the day. We're dealing with a really different and difficult situation, and I need to prioritise, well, what's more important at the moment. For me, how I suppose try to keep a bit of balance, I love shopping. So even during COVID times, look, online shopping is getting a fair bit out, I have to admit. I jump onto social media. So I find scrolling through Facebook just easy. It doesn't require a lot of my energy. I don't get absorbed and sucked into other people's stories in terms of, oh, wow, look where they are. I'll just look at what, that's for me. That's my thing. And I do love holidaying. So for me, looking ahead to goodness knows when, but, exploring holiday options. I suppose the other thing that I do that I think is really, really important is that, metaphorically speaking, I choose to live in a community, and I don't mean like a gated community, but I don't travel life alone. I like being with others, and look, I have to be honest, I share my burdens, but equally I look out for others, and I also reach out to people who have helped me, who I might think could use a little bit of help right now. I really think that it's important that, I need to be able to see what's happening around us at the moment, because this is our daily reality during this global pandemic. So, that's something that, I don't retreat, and I think that's incredibly important. That, unfortunately, sometimes people are going to be on the end of me, blowing off some steam, and that's okay. It's really important.
But definitely, it's important. Venting and getting it out and filtering what's going on up there is what it's all about, and that's what our community and being able to contribute to your community and being connected. I talk about the two C's with community is contribute. Say it again, contribute and connect. And being a part of that. Community is key in our life, and and appreciating the relationships and checking in and constantly checking in. You talked about the check-ins before with the students, and as adults, we need to make sure that we're onto it, and checking in, whether it be by a message, whether it be by a phone call, whether it be a FaceTime or whatever it be, constantly checking with your, we talk about our support crew, your tribe, you have your pretty strong knitted group of girls that you have there, and it's making sure that you have that safe environment that you can have those conversations, as you said, that you're able to, and you're able to have people with you, that it is just a normal thing that we're having, and it's not seen as, oh, here they come again. It's that creating that environment for us as individuals and as in our collective is really crucial, because and males are not so as good as it's via a FaceTime conversation than a female might be, but this is the world we're in, and as the more normalize the behaviours around it, the more we normalize the ownership and the connection into the fact that life throws challenges, and it throws a lot of challenges, and it throws a lot of challenges that aren't in our control, but we have control over how we react to it and how we engage in the behaviours or the practices to move forward with it. But if we keep playing, like I said before, we keep playing the victim, it's not going to work. No one's going to move forward, and no one's going to have the community, and no one's going to contribute to the community, and the community is going to contribute to you, and that's just the way that we feel. So it's just looking through, just before we move forward, Jodi, I could talk to you all night. Or actually, you could just talk all night anyway. You seem to be a very popular person through the comments, but I'll just take some more serious ones that come through. Schools, teachers, parents, and students are doing the most amazing job, as we talked about before. They should all be so proud of how they have transitioned through this very trying time. And on the other flip side of that is obviously the students. They're just doing amazing, I think, just because who would have thought? And people go, oh, compare it back to 1914 when they had nothing and all this sort of stuff. Whatever. Like, that was then. I appreciate it. I appreciate the hardships and the experiences that people have gone through in our lifetime beforehand. But this is the experiences that our community and our world is going through right now. And it's something that the majority of us have never experienced or even thought about experiencing in our lifetime moving forward. So I think everyone's doing an amazing job. But let's just make sure that we are checking out for each other, supporting each other, because peer-to-peer support through this current time is crucial. There's mental health, the mental health challenges is skyrocketed. From people that are on top of their game to people that aren't coping so well. It's all going through. demand on health services now is through the roof, and accessing that, Lifeline and Beyond Blue, they're in, had a spike of 50 to 60% increase in call rates. And I just found out today that majority of those calls going through to Beyond Blue are from Victoria, and which is, obviously because we're in the whole lockdown phase. So it talks about the relationship that isolation is causing into our world. But, peer-to-peer support, as I said, is where we need to be moving forward, training ourselves. And you said the pastoral care program through Overnewton is that every teacher, staff member is engaged in that program, which creates a more holistic program for people to be able to access when they need it, not just be able to think, oh, who's involved? And I think as a community, and I hope I'm not sort of going off here, but as a community, if we're all involved in that training and all involved in that support and all involved in mental health and wellbeing education and understanding and how we're making sure that people know we can go to whoever we need to, not thinking, oh, they're not going to be able to have the conversation. But it's important, as I said, and hats off to the team at Overnewton, because I think it's been amazing, to see that. And to tell you the truth, timing's everything in this world, Jodi, because we have actually just put, my wife just put the two boys down on the waiting list for Overnewton, because we are in the area. So hopefully we'll see you soon. There you go. Heather says, agreed. And Jodi, hats off to the teachers and to the students who have now a life so very different to what they knew. Most definitely. And it is very different. What happens next year, Jodi? What happens? What's 2021? What type of conversations you guys had for 2021? We don't know.
We don't know. We don't have all of the answers. What we know is that 2021 is going to roll on, and it is going to be here before we know it. Mm-hmm. And certainly, some of the discussions that we've been having for our middle school students, it has been around. At the moment, it's just so critical that we have our students return to us in a really good mental state, and their wellbeing, as I mentioned earlier, is at the forefront of everything we're doing. We then need to have a look at, okay, well, what have been the really critical skills that we've needed to teach them in terms of progressing to that next year of learning? And then it's our responsibility to run a little bit of an audit to establish, well, what do they know? What do they need to know? And how can we work with them to get them to where they need to be? But as I said, and I really sound like a broken record, but the student's well-being has to come first in all the decisions that we make. Because to get them from A to B, we need happy, well-rounded and well-adjusted children that can transition no matter what life throws at them, and knowing that they've got their support crew. And part of that for us at the moment, in preparation, not just for next year, but for next week and next term even, is that we've got Wellbeing Wednesday that we implemented the beginning of last term. So for us, Wellbeing Wednesday, and it's not tokenistic by any measure, Wellbeing Wednesday is a day for students to recalibrate, engage with assembly, with chapel, with a designated 50-minute pastoral care lesson with their home group teacher, and just take time to complete work that they may have not had a chance to do, respond to feedback, reflect on their learning, and as I said, recalibrate, ready for the next 2 days of learning. But in addition to that, we speak a lot about the students. I think it's really worthy of note that for our staff, it was actually about them having a time to somewhat catch their breath. And it was certainly not a day off. They work extraordinarily hard at present. But we made a commitment that our home group teachers would also be making Wellbeing Wednesday check-in calls. And those phone calls were to the students in their home groups. And certainly there was an expectation of a couple of those calls at a bare minimum to be made to each child and family during the course of last term, and then again for this term. So that They are calls that sit separate to academic progress check-ins, issues relating to, online engagement, for example, and certainly sit separate to our current parent-teacher interviews, which we had a session this evening that finished at 7 o'clock, and then we've got another full day on Wednesday, and so that'll be the third session. So they are not conversations about academic progress, academic engagement. They are all about how are you? How are you going? What have you been up to? And where the parents might jump into the call as well. And that's our way in middle school of doing those wellbeing check-ins with our families, because this is a very, very different time for a school like Overnewton, who has a very, very large family involvement program that we're very proud of. There is not a day at school where we don't have copious amounts of family members on our grounds, and I'm not just talking for pick up and drop off. They are involved in the education of their children in so many different ways. And the moment that COVID hit, we needed to suspend that program, and to not have families on site for a school like ours has really been quite interesting. So this is our way of still being able to connect in with our families and support those students.
What a great initiative. I'll give you a round of applause, and it all worked. But, as you said, you're doing what you can for the students and the families and the teachers. As you said, the well-being of your teachers, because if they can't rock up each day with close to 100% of themselves, obviously it has that impact, that flow-on impact. And where there's no, you'll laugh at this one. Alison, a great friend of yours, I can't wait for school to go back, because grade 2 literacy has had me stumped at times, and which is quite funny. But and it is, you talked about before, the learning, the experiences from what was, to go back, myself even to go back, and think that they're actually doing a different maths now. And I always thought I was good at maths, and that was my thing, and numbers were always my thing, but to go back and just to see what they're doing is like, this is not, what's this? What kind of curriculum is this? Where are they at? English, geography, the types of subjects that are involved now. But there's a commitment that's needed from the students, from the teachers, from your leaders, from the school leaders, from the parents, from aunties and uncles and grandparents, and whoever is a commitment to making sure that the mental health and well-being of these kids coming through is at the right forefront, and making sure that they're able to invest in themselves. Not have to worry about all the crap that goes on in this world. So it is amazing. As I said, I could talk to you all night, Jodi, but be mindful of the fact that you've got a world that you've got to get back to. But I do want people to know, as I said, there is the program is released. The 14th of September is the date for that first one that'll be done. So there is the pre-learning component, but a virtual classroom, which will be on the 14th of September, which is a Monday. So we won't have a Monday night live on that night. I'm sorry. But I'm going to finish up with some bit of love here. Jodi, we always finish with our people, our guests, an amazing guest, as I said, going from Kane Watts, the Australian champion boxer last week, to the what could be the middle school boxer from Overnewton. So anyway, here we go. What would you tell your 15-year-old self?
Oh, what would I tell my 15-year-old self? Never compromise on your values, such as compassion, care, friendship, generosity, presence, family. It's what sustains us. Keep these safe.
I like it. What does mateship mean to you?
It means looking out for others, reaching out, and being there unconditionally.
Unconditional. And that's the thing. It's unconditional. Whether it's good, the bad, and all the indifference, and everything in between, that you're unconditionally there, because mateship, you find out when you move through life who your mates are. It's you think those good times that once were had that was what mateship was. But it's understanding when you go through those challenging times that you find out who your mates are in this world, and how you invest in that. it's a two-way street, and you don't get it right. And I'm a victim of that as well. I don't get it right all the time. And I have had many a friend or connected one person to me that that their relationships has grown apart, and that's fine, and that's perfectly fine, because relationships will be what they want to be, but you keep evolving with that, but making sure you invest in your people unconditionally. Jodi, what would you tell your mate or friend or loved one or family member who's battling a mental health challenge?
Reach out, talk, and talk some more.
Talk. And if you want someone that can talk, and talking is an amazing thing to be able to do, and it's actually quite hard. It's quite a courageous thing to be able to do and to be able to connect into that, but more normalise that behaviour around talking and venting and pushing that message out there is crucial. But I'm going to challenge you on this one. It's also about allowing the silence. Yeah. From you that was reaching out to me because you're going through a certain challenge, but it's allowing some silence to happen in that conversation, because if I'm talking too much, I don't give you your space to be able to talk. So it's reading the relationship, reading the conversation capacity there. What tools we talked about before, holiday, food shopping, and my wife said it today, and she said it to the boys, and she goes, what's our favourite part of the day? And that is, what time is it? Parcel time. Parcels have been, you talk about your shopping and you love there, when parcels have been, and you're not knowing what parcel is going to be delivered when, and it's just a big surprise, because it's like, oh, I've got something new. What is it today? And it's but you've done that before. So, and in this world, Jodi, what do you wish for?
My wish is for people to be vulnerable without judgment. That's what I would love for people to be able to do, and to speak even when you have no words.
Yep.
And my wish would be that for everyone to know that everyone has someone. There is always someone there, no matter how hard or what journey you're traveling.
Yeah, and that is a great way to finish that. And for some people in this world, and I'm very privileged that I have an amazing support network, and as you do, it's sometimes for people, and they say, I don't have anybody, and I appreciate what that can feel like, because having been in the midst of that, I was in that mindset, even with my amazing support crew around me. I was in the midst of that mindset for a long period of my life, thinking there's no one here that could support me, even though I had it around me. My family, I had a couple of close friends, and my wife is I felt that loneliness, I felt that disconnect from that being. But as you said, normalizing the behavior around it, normalizing the language around it, making sure that we're all connecting into that ability, and that vulnerability comes without judgment. And you nailed it on the head. So you're an absolute superstar. Jodi Fitzgerald-Tate, head of middle school at Overnewton College. I look forward to becoming the footy coach at Overnewton one day when my kids come there. No, just joking. So we'll wait to see how it goes.
I'll hold you to that.
Hold me to it. I'm all there. I'm all in. It's but they'll be teaching me more than I'll be coaching them, so it's all good. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate your time. I keep saying it every week that time is your most precious gift you can give anybody. And from the comments that have been coming in tonight, you've been an absolute ripper, Jodi. I really do appreciate it, and look forward to the launch of their Empowering Caregivers program online, where people can access. You can access it now. You can get in, pump it through. The first date is locked in for 14th September. More dates. Obviously, we have our Welfare Warrior program as well for people to, it's about training. They're giving the tools and the training to make sure that we can have that confidence to tackle this beast head on. And obviously, our Lifetime of Wellbeing program, which is a free program online. Capacity to everybody can do that and get engaged with that. So making sure we're taking care of ourselves and looking out for each other. So now remember, wake up tomorrow morning and tell yourself that you love yourself, because It's the most important thing in life, and I appreciate it. So thank you, Jodi, and I will speak to you soon. If anyone wants to know more from Jodi, you can contact us and we'll connect you, but you will see her in the videos and the resources for the program. Thanks very much. Cheers, Jodi.
Thank you.
Bye. 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 And for everyone, as I said, the comments, the likes, the shares, the whole thing that's happening through, it's been amazing. I really do appreciate everyone's contribution. I think this has been one of the most highly engaged comment-wise of any sessions that we've done. So you actually struck a chord with a lot of people, Jodi. Anyway, go put your pajamas on and chill out. See you, mate.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.